Hello, my name is Ursula Haselböck. I'm the director of the Festspiele Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, and I'm very happy to share my thoughts with you about the changes in the industry, about running a festival, and about being a woman with family in a leading position. So I'm the Intendantin, the director of the Festspiele Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. Festspiele Mecklenburg-Vorpommern is the third largest festival in Germany, and it's in the whole area of Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, which is a country located in the northeast of Germany, a country with a very low number of inhabitants and a very vast country, so a very big country actually. And my role in this festival is to plan and to organize almost 200 concerts per year in the whole country. So I'm responsible for the artistic planning, meaning which artists do we invite, which concerts do we plan on which locations. We have a big number of locations we can choose off, and in every year there are around 80 locations we host concerts in. So that's my main task at the Festspiele Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. But of course, planning concerts and planning arts in the whole country is the fun part. Of course, there's also the part of the money I'm responsible for. So sponsoring, attract new sponsors, also make a plan, a budget on what money to spend on what. So that's the darker part of my job, actually. And of course, I'm responsible for a team of 32 wonderful people working for me in this festival, and making the whole country sound and bringing classical music in the whole country of Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. It's actually a festival in three parts. So we have a festival spring on the island Rügen, which is 10 days with chamber music. Then there's the big summer festival, 3 months long from mid-June to mid-September with about 140, 150 concerts. And then we also have some concerts in the wintertime. And usually in normal years, we attract up to 85,000, 90,000 people coming to the concerts from, of course, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, but from all over Germany, or also very international guests. So we're very proud of that, of course. And we started actually as a chamber music festival, but after 32 years of our existence, we also host big orchestras, big symphonic orchestras, and of course also not classical music. We'll have a series of young jazz musicians, and so we try to really cover everything, which is good music, actually, not only classical music. We have the name Mecklenburg-Vorpommern in our names. It's the Festspiele Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, but we're actually a privately funded festival. So we have public subsidies of only 7%, and more than 50% are actually coming from ticket income, from ticket revenues, which is rather special, and which was, of course, a big challenge in the last 2 years with the pandemic situation. And so we hope to recover more and more, and that we get up to the 50% of ticket revenues, which is an important part of our budget. My dreams for the future, actually, to be able to still make music in the whole country. So my dream for the future and for the Festspiele Mecklenburg-Vorpommern is actually to be able to bring music to the whole country, and also to regions where usually not a lot of classical music is promoted and is hosted. Regions where there's no concert hall, or regions where there's no orchestra, not even a music school. So I think it's a very important role of the Festspiele Mecklenburg-Vorpommern to bring music to all areas of the country and to bring music to everyone in this country. And so my big dream is to fulfill that, and of course to attract musicians from all over the world to come to this beautiful country and play music here. Of course, with every big job, there also come big challenges, and especially in running a big festival like that with a very little amount of public subsidies. Of course, money is always a topic, especially in times like those. And Mecklenburg-Vorpommern especially is a country, we don't have big companies here, we don't have a lot of big industries, so it's actually hard to find sponsors or find new sponsors to attract them to support classical music or a classical music festival. Of course, program-wise, it's always challenging to cover everything and to make a program which enthusiasts everyone, which attracts enthusiasts of classical music as well of people who are usually not found in concerts or who don't go to concerts regularly. And so that's actually the main topic we are discussing a lot. Of course, we want to gain new audiences. We want to make a program for everyone in the whole country. And as I said before, there are regions where there's no theater, no music school, there's no opera. So people are not regularly in touch with classical music. And then we, the Festspiele, come once a year and make a program there. And so we, of course, have to decide if it's very clever to play contemporary music there, or better do something which is a little lighter to open the door to music. So that's a lot of discussion we have in the theme. But I have actually a wonderful story to tell about that, because we had a prize, actually. We gave away every year for new locations, for new venues. And one of the venues was in the middle of nowhere, actually. So it was really somewhere where not many people live, where there's no music school, where when people work, they have to commute a long way. But there was a very nice church, and this church won the prize as this new location. And we hosted a concert there with two very well-known classical musicians, and they played a program with only contemporary music, so really contemporary music, some premieres, and the audience was so alert and was so, I would say, thankful, but in the best way thankful, and so enthusiastic about this concert. And I was really impressed, and it actually showed if you don't have any prejudices towards the music which is played for you, every music can be beautiful and can make you an enthusiast for music. So it doesn't have to be Mozart and Schubert all the time. It can also be very contemporary music. If it's good music and if the musicians find a way to communicate with the audience and to transfer their feelings to the audience. And this was really a very special occasion I really like talking about, because it's the sense of our festival and is why we do this whole thing. Of course, it's still special that I'm in this role, being a director and being a woman and being a mother. I have two children, which is actually rare in positions like that. And I think there's still a lot to do in society and in music business, and also classical music business, because I can see that in the working level, there are so many cool women doing all the work, but on the boss level, at the director level, there are very little women, and there's still the glass ceiling here we have to break. And I can just encourage every young woman working in music industries or in classical music industry or in any industries to just believe in yourself. You have to work harder than some guys, and you have to, push harder and to believe in yourself, but do it. I think the time for women is now and will come, and it will still take some time, but there is a place for us in this business, in this industry. And I think women can be sometimes better bosses than men. But of course, it's a change also for business partners to talk to women and to talk to mothers who say, okay, I can't be there tonight because I have to take care of my kids or something like that. And I think that's a thing which can be said and which should be planned in, because, also men have families, and it just has grown in history that they always have very strong women in their backing up and taking the family work from them. And I think it doesn't have to be like that. I think we're in a modern society where work and family life has to find a place and has to have a place. But of course, especially in classical music, for some men, it's still really a little strange to make business with women in a way. And, I got very funny compliments like, actually, even if you're a woman, you're doing your job pretty well. So I thought it was the biggest compliment I could get, but it's still a little sad that compliments like that have to be said. But of course, there's always also a positive side being a woman as a boss, especially being an idol for a younger generation. And I think that's a huge responsibility, but a very positive responsibility. Because, for example, I didn't have any female role models in positions like that. They just didn't exist. And especially role models combining a challenging position work-wise with family. And yeah, I'm happy to take that chance, and hopefully it will change a little bit in society, and especially in the hierarchies of classical music business, which are sometimes a little, sometimes very traditional and almost conservative. But yeah, being a woman also always opens new doors, and especially here in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, the politics is a mainly female politic. We have a female prime minister, we have many ministers who are women, and of course you talk differently from woman to woman, and so that's also sometimes a big pro. I got a musical education. I'm coming from a family of musicians. So my parents are both musicians. My grandparents have been musicians. And I was a cellist myself, but it was very helpful for my career that I decided very early in my career that I don't want to be a professional musician. But of course, having this career behind me and having professionally studied an instrument, of course, helps me communicating with musicians, because you know how they work, how they feel, how the business works. And of course, they can take you more serious, I think, when they know that you have the similar background. But at the same time, I'm very happy that I decided not to be a professional musician very early, because I think it can be heartbreaking to be in the management side and know that actually you want to be on stage, but you just haven't been good enough for whatever reason why you didn't make it on stage. And so I'm happy on the side I am now. And I think that a professional education as a musician, of course, helps you understanding musicians and helps you understanding the business and the needs of musicians and how the business works. And of course, you know many musicians from also your studying career. You played in orchestras with, or you played chamber music with. But at the same time, I think you can also be a very good director of music festival without playing an instrument or without having that education. So I think it's all about enthusiasm for music and enthusiasm for people, I think, because you're always in communication mode with musicians or with the audience, with business partners, with sponsors, and you have to transport this enthusiasm for music and for the field you're working in and for actually the product you want to sell to everyone. And so it's all about the heart you open to people. There's so many enjoyable parts of my job. I can't even count them. No, of course, I love being with people and I love being with interesting people. And so I think my job is match made for me, because you're surrounded by artists and people enthusiastic about music or not yet enthusiastic about music, but on the way to be it. And I think that's, a wonderful thing to do. And at the same time, to convince people to come to concerts. Actually, we're all seducers, we're all storytellers, and we all have to tell good stories to make people believe in our product, the concert, the music, and to make people come to our concert. And the storytelling is a challenging part, but also a very nice part of my job. And I think there's nothing better than, being in a concert. You planned for a very, very long time. You worked for a very long time with the musicians on stage and with my team. And it's a fully sold hall. Everyone is happy about the outcome. And afterwards, you're backstage and just feel, okay, that just worked. And I think it's just the best feeling to have. And that's what all the work is worth for. Relationships to other people is the main thing in our business, and especially networking is the main thing. And not only with musicians, but with every kind of arts around you, and also with any other business around you. So I think to just walk through the world with open eyes and a background, what you wanted or what you want to achieve, opens doors, and to know whom to talk to make a project possible is actually the main thing in my job, and whom to ask to work with you. Because being a director doesn't mean I know everything myself. It's actually building things together with other people, with musicians or with sponsors who make projects possible because they support it financially, or with other institutions, other theaters, other institutions in the country. So this is a very important part of my job. And of course, I think it's a pro if you're not an introvert person. So if you like talking to other people, but not everyone has to be as outgoing as I am, for example. And sometimes I think I'm a little too outgoing for people in northern Germany. I'm coming from Vienna, Austria, and I'm a little more southern from my tempers. But of course, it's about talking to people and to convince them that what you do is a good plan, and to convince them to support it. And that's, I think the main key to success in our business, but probably in any other job. It's about networking and building up a network, because no one is alone on this planet, and big things are never made by one person only, but always by a good team and a good network and the right people who are working together. I think being a promoter, we have the very important role of bringing people together. So bringing the audience and the artists together and to make things possible. An artist is probably a good viola player, a good pianist, but he actually should focus on the arts and to, what he wants to tell the audience. And the audience has to know what artists will be presented where, and have to know where to go, where to buy the ticket, and have to be seduced to listen to an artist. And that's the very important role of a promoter of a festival like we are hosting. And I'm very proud that my festival actually made many new projects possible. So not the usual concerts you hear at concert halls with an overture, then a solo concerto, and then a big symphony in the second part, but to really think which artists can be combined and which arts can be combined, and on what place it can take place, because also that is a big thing. And that's, the big pro we have as a festival, that we actually can choose a hall. So we don't have a concert hall where we have to play our symphonic concerts in, but we can play in a castle, we can play open air on a big lawn, we can play on a boat, or also in an industrial hall, which was just open for this concert, and where one day ago, I don't know, boats have been produced. So that's a big thing we're actually pursuing in our festival, to also make classical music or make music possible in halls which are not usually made as a concert hall. And I think that's also a big part of why people come to concerts, and to actually make it more approachable for everyone, because I still think that the big golden halls in the city centers where you have to dress up, and where some people don't know actually how to behave in concerts, are still frightening for some people who might be interested to go to a concert, but always too shy to actually really make the step forward and to enter this concert hall and to listen to the music. And so that's a big role we actually as a festival are facing, and we're happy that it actually works very well, that we have people in our audiences who sometimes actually wouldn't go to a big concert hall, I would say. But that's a big part promoter has to actually do, to make things possible, and to also inspire artists or encourage artists to think about new projects, and to be brave, and to provide the background to make a concert possible. Now, of course, digitalization also hit the classical market and also hit our festival in a good and in a not so good way. I think that especially the pandemic has proven that streaming is not a substitute for live music. And I think that's actually a good learning factor we had, because I think also that was already doubted when everything was digitalized, when everything could be streamed. And it's okay that concerts are streamed, and it's wonderful. There's a mediathek with concerts you can listen to anytime you want in the midnight, and that I can listen to, I don't know, LA Phil, even though I've never been to Los Angeles. And I think that's a very good thing. But at the same time, I think it showed that live music, it's actually a very special thing, because I think nothing can substitute the vibes you feel in a live performance when a youth orchestra is playing in front of you and just blows you away by the sound it makes in the same hall. But of course, digitalization is not only streaming and transferring concerts into your living room. It's also about social media. And I think that's a very big chance for every one of us to build a community, to tell the stories you want to tell, and also to approach new people and approach people. And stories can be shared so easily, and everyone can easily make a video and just put it online. And I think that's a very good way to make the community closer, and build a community where everyone knows what you're talking about or what you want to talk about. But yeah, I won't say that it's not also challenging, especially for, I think, classical music industry, which has always, sold the live product as the non plus ultra, and has sold, the classical business model. And I think we all have to adapt to that. And hopefully we'll also, approach many more young people and approach them and convince them to come to live concerts. But of course, there's also a big change in the education, because, as I said, I coming from a family of musicians, of course I played an instrument, and I'm coming from Vienna, the city of music, is it told so, but also in Vienna, there's the problem that at schools, the music schools, don't have teachers, or young people don't go to music schools anymore. Or even at the elementary schools, young children don't sing anymore, or don't have the basic education. I think everyone needs to open the ears for music, and I think that's a thing we all should work on. There's always something going on, and usually we are in classical music industries, we're sometimes a little behind everything, because, we plan a long time ahead. For example, now we're planning actually 2 years ahead, or also almost 3 years ahead with big projects. And so it's sometimes hard for us to adapt to the very fast changing world around us, and all the new technical challenges we have, or the new technical possibilities as well. But I think in terms of digitalization, I think communicating with people, gaining new audiences, that's the big chance we have with digitalization. I think it won't substitute the product itself. I think the live concert is the product we sell. And I would like to stick to that, at least for a while. It doesn't have to be the classical concert in the classical mode it always have been. We can find new formats and everything, but just the live experience itself, I think it's the product we should sell as a main thing. But to tell stories about this product, and to communicate with people, and to seduce people coming to this product, enjoying this product, the digitalization is a big chance we have, and a big door which has opened, and which we actually have to walk through, and we have to use. And I think it can be a wonderful chance for also classical music industries.